Hello, my name is Lisa, and I am an intervention specialist with Licking Heights Local Schools. And today I will be discussing how to embrace learning difficulties and help students find success. The takeaway or objectives of this professional development is to provide teachers with multiple strategies that help students develop those personal connections that solidify new knowledge. You will be able to measure the success or failure by observing independent student application of these skills within their own personal context. My son is an active duty infantry soldier in the Army, and he embraced the difficult challenge of completing airborne school at Fort Benning, Georgia. Colin was able to overcome his initial hesitation regarding jumping out of a perfectly good airplane by implementing learning called desirable difficulties. Airborne training is learning, practicing, and executing the mastery of that skill through testing. This could be compared to traditional learning techniques in a content area, with the exception that the test could have life or death consequences. The test itself, actually jumping out of the plane, is an example of the mastery of that specific skill. In the past, learning difficulties were described as student deficits because those learners did not access knowledge in the same manner as typical peers. Researchers point out the importance of procedural knowledge in conjunction with acquired knowledge in building success. Problem statement. Typically, the first time a skill is learned, it can be messy and unorganized. This is not unusual. Researchers feel that robust learning is a significant way for knowledge to be exactly where we need it for future experiences. Researchers further define the goal of education as a way to provide learners with knowledge that is applicable and transferable. This long-term retention needs to be accessible even if it isn't used very often. Content overview. Researchers explain how important these patterns are in establishing representations or traces within the brain memory. In order for a learner to make long-term memory connection, the brain needs to find meaning or order for those new concepts. Specifically, previous knowledge is the basis for making those connections. This pattern consolidation is what provides the foundation for solidifying those skills into long-term memory. The key here is being able to relate new knowledge to something practical in daily life by applying those skills in context. This organization is how the brain provides meaning to new learning. Researchers explain how the brain organizes new information from short-term memory to long-term memory by established cues or hints. In order to successfully retrieve this new information, a learner must practice remembering. Take the example of someone playing golf for the first time in several years. They will have to consciously think about all the nuances associated with their stance and swing. The brain is actively working to remember the connections previously established when the golfer played or practiced regularly. The longer the person played golf, the more entrenched their foundational knowledge is. If an emotional connection to the learning is established, that further solidifies the memory. Spaced practice forces learners to reconstruct roads of connections from long-term memory. The process is successful basically because of allowable forgetting. Specifically, when a student spaces out their learning, it provides opportunity for the brain to backtrack and reconnect commonalities. The act of having to work at recalling a memory reinforces the ability to recall that information later. Researchers believe forgetting is a way to strengthen not only learning, but the patterns that are open for recalling that information. This retrieval process is what allows for the differentiation of new experiences to previous ones. The versatility that is generated is what guides the learner to higher critical skills. For example, in order for a baseball player to be successful when they are up to bat, they must have a significant level of experience with that skill. They need practical experiences that will provide them opportunities to make comparisons and contrasts regarding all the possible choices a pitcher could throw at them. If a player has only participated in massed practice, they would not have the foundational skills to anticipate a curveball or a changeup. Massed practice focuses on mastering one skill before moving on to another skill. Interleaving learning approaches learning from a broader perspective. Interleaving learning floods the learner with multiple scenarios that force the learner to personally establish patterns. When interleaving learning is practiced, a player could be faced with a variation of any type of ball the pitcher could throw. This in turn multiplies their foundational experience. Initially, this may be frustrating because it seems that there are too many options to anticipate. But the key in this example is the anticipation. When practice is mixed up or multiple variations are used, it helps the learner develop strategies that build success. The frustrating component of interleaving is the lack of quick, short-term progress. However, the long-lasting results build a more permanent knowledge base. The opportunity for self-reflection helps a learner make connections to a topic. When providing a reflection, learners are explaining a topic in their own words, and this creates an emotional connection. The emotional component is the catalyst in reinforcing the long-term memory link. As with anything in life, learning involves successes and failures. Researchers further explain the importance of constructive feedback. If a student is provided with all the information, but with no opportunity to challenge themselves, there is no growth. Students need to understand that failure is not the end. Failure can lead to creativity and promote self-growth. Some feel that it is not productive to allow students to make errors, but with the appropriate corrective feedback, those situations provide valuable learning opportunities that create a teachable moment. Suggestions for implementation. Connections to previous learning appears to be the most successful method in reinforcing knowledge into long-term memory. Students struggle with allowing additional time and effort in learning something new. Additionally, they also struggle with making mistakes. What they don't realize is that the mistakes are what helps to make those personal connections. One of the most productive educational environments for learning is one that interjects wrong answers and pushes students towards self-discovery. Demonstrations are a fundamental component in teaching. When a teacher presents a lesson in a way that allows the student to see it, hear it, feel it, and do it, they make a positive difference. While the concept of practice definitely has merit, one needs to understand the value in building opportunities for reflection and self-discovery. Students need to be asked to reflect on what they've learned about a topic and what connection they will use to make it easy for them to remember it later. Summary. Many times, learning challenges generate anxiety and frustration. This commonly impacts many learners who feel their only alternative is to shut down. Researchers have identified how strong background knowledge has a direct correlation in positive student self-confidence. This storage bank of prior knowledge is what learners use to make connections and assumptions. Practicing varied scenarios also helps to build deeper, more meaningful critical thinking skills. When students encounter manageable obstacles, This has a positive result in retention and application. Most importantly, learners will take the chance on learning if they feel confident in their foundation.